The world woke up to a digital earthquake this morning, the kind that doesn't just shake the news cycle, but fundamentally rattles the geopolitical bedrock upon which the entire Middle East has been balancing for decades. It started with a whisper in the encrypted channels of Tehran, a fragmented report slipping through the cracks of state censorship before exploding into a roar across every major news network and social media platform on the planet. The rumor, quickly gaining traction as a terrifying possibility, suggested that Iran's new supreme leader had suffered a severe, potentially life-altering injury. In the vacuum of confirmed information, the global reaction was not just swift, it was visceral, chaotic, and deeply revealing of how fragile the current international order truly is. Within minutes, stock markets from Tokyo to London dipped in unison. Not because of any concrete economic data, but driven purely by the primal fear of instability in a region that controls the energy veins of the modern world. This wasn't merely a health update about an aging political figure. It was a stress test for the entire global system. And the initial results suggest we are far more vulnerable than anyone cared to admit. The speed at which conspiracy theories began to outpace factual reporting was staggering, a testament to our hyper-connected yet deeply fractured information ecosystem, where truth often takes a back seat to the urgency of the narrative. As the hours ticked by, the reactions from regional powers painted a picture of a continent holding its breath, waiting to see if the dominoes would start falling. In Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, there was a palpable tension, a silent calculation happening behind closed doors as leaders weighed the implications of a potential power vacuum in their northern neighbor. For years, the shadow of Iran has loomed large over the Gulf, shaping foreign policy, military spending, and diplomatic alliances. The mere suggestion that the helm of that ship might be suddenly unmanned or destabilized sent ripples of anxiety through the corridors of power in the Arabian Peninsula. There were no official statements immediately, just a heavy, watchful silence that spoke volumes about the uncertainty gripping the region. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, the atmosphere was electric with a different kind of intensity. Security establishments went into high alert, not necessarily expecting an immediate attack, but preparing for the unpredictable chaos that often follows leadership crises in adversarial nations. The fear wasn't just about what Iran might do in its confusion, but about what various factions within Iran might do to prove their strength in the absence of a clear, unifying voice. The specter of internal civil strife spilling over borders became the primary concern for intelligence agencies across the Levant, turning a health rumor into a full-blown security nightmare. Across the ocean, the reaction in Washington and European capitals was a complex mix of diplomatic caution and strategic scrambling. The White House Situation Room likely lit up like a Christmas tree, with analysts poring over satellite imagery, intercepts, and human intelligence sources trying to separate fact from fiction. The United States has spent years navigating a delicate dance with Iran, balancing sanctions, nuclear negotiations, and proxy conflicts. A sudden change in leadership dynamics, especially one triggered by a traumatic event, throws every existing strategy into disarray. European leaders, still reeling from the energy shocks of recent years, watched with dread as oil prices began to twitch upward. The memory of past disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz is fresh in everyone's mind. And the idea that internal turmoil in Iran could lead to a closure of that critical choke point is a scenario that keeps energy ministers awake at night. There was a noticeable hesitation in issuing public condemnations or offers of support, a diplomatic freezing of posture, while the world waited to see who would actually emerge as the decision-maker in Tehran. This paralysis in the West highlighted an uncomfortable truth. For all our technological superiority and military might, we are still largely reactive when it comes to the internal machinations of regimes we barely understand. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this surge in global reaction was the behavior of the general public. The billions of people scrolling through their feeds, consuming bite-sized updates, and forming opinions in real time. Social media became a battleground of narratives, with hashtags trending in dozens of languages, each carrying its own bias, fear, or hope. In some corners of the internet, there was a morbid curiosity, a fascination with the drama of empire and the fall of leaders. In others, there was genuine fear for the future, with ordinary citizens worrying about the price of gas, the safety of loved ones serving in conflict zones, or the stability of their own economies. The human element of this story cannot be overstated. Behind the geopolitical analysis and the market fluctuations are real people whose lives are inextricably linked to the stability of this region. We saw videos surface from inside Iran, grainy and shaky, showing streets that seemed eerily quiet or unusually patrolled, fueling further speculation. The ambiguity of the situation allowed every observer to project their own fears onto the screen, creating a kaleidoscope of reactions that ranged from celebratory to apocalyptic. It was a stark reminder of how interconnected we have become, where a medical event in one capital can trigger an emotional and psychological response in living rooms halfway around the world. The nature of the alleged injury itself became a subject of intense scrutiny and debate. Was it an accident? A natural health decline finally catching up? Or something more sinister? An assassination attempt? Or an internal coup disguised as a medical emergency? Each theory carried its own weight and implications. If it was an accident, the succession process, however opaque, might follow established protocols, leading to a period of mourning and transition that, while tense, could be managed. If it was foul play, however, the ramifications would be explosive, likely triggering a wave of retaliatory actions and a hardening of positions both domestically and internationally. The lack of clear visual evidence or a coherent statement from Iranian state media only fueled the fire, allowing the rumor mill to grind out increasingly dramatic scenarios. In the age of deep fakes and AI-generated content, the line between reality and fabrication became blurrier by the minute, making the job of verifying information nearly impossible for the average person. This fog of war, generated not by bullets but by bytes, created a unique kind of panic, one where trust in institutions eroded rapidly, and everyone became their own investigator, piecing together a puzzle with half the missing pieces. As the day wore on, the initial shock began to settle into a grim determination among global observers. The surge of reactions evolved from pure panic to a more calculated assessment of risks and opportunities. Financial traders adjusted their portfolios, hedging against oil spikes and currency fluctuations. Diplomats drafted contingency plans for various outcomes, ranging from a smooth transition to total state collapse. Military commands reviewed deployment statuses and readiness levels. The world was effectively bracing for impact, even though the nature of the impact remained unknown. This collective holding of breath created a strange sense of unity amidst the division. For a few hours, the entire globe was focused on a single point on the map, united by uncertainty. It forced a moment of reflection on how much of our modern stability relies on the continuity of individual leaders, on the fragile threads of personality and health that hold complex systems together. The realization that so much could hinge on the physical well-being of one person is a sobering thought, exposing the inherent vulnerabilities in our political structures. Looking deeper into the cultural and psychological impact, this event served as a mirror, reflecting our collective anxieties about the future. We live in an era defined by volatility, where the unexpected seems to be the only constant. The reaction to this alleged injury was not just about Iran. It was about everything else happening in the world simultaneously. It tapped into existing fears about war, economic instability, and the breakdown of order. For many, it felt like another shoe dropping in a long sequence of global crises, reinforcing a narrative of inevitable decline. Yet, there was also a resilience visible in the way communities and nations prepared to adapt. The surge in reactions showed a world that, while frightened, is also incredibly responsive and agile. Information flowed faster than ever before, allowing for rapid coordination and awareness. While this speed also facilitated the spread of misinformation, it also meant that falsehoods could be challenged and corrected with unprecedented velocity, provided one knew where to look. The dynamic interplay between fear and facts defined the day, creating a turbulent but ultimately informative case study in global crisis management. In the end, whether the injury proves to be real, exaggerated, or entirely fabricated, the reaction it provoked has already left an indelible mark on the global consciousness. It has exposed the thin ice we are walking on, the delicate balance of power that sustains our current reality, and the profound interconnectedness of our fates. The surge of emotions, from the trading floors of New York to the tea houses of Tehran, demonstrates that we are all part of a single, pulsating organism, reacting instinctively to threats perceived anywhere within the body. As the dust begins to settle and clearer pictures emerge, the lessons learned from these frantic hours will likely shape policies and perspectives for years to come. We are reminded that in a globalized world, there is no such thing as a local crisis anymore. Everything is everything, and the ripple effects of a single event can wash over the entire planet with surprising force. The story of this alleged injury is far from over, and whatever the final chapter holds, the prologue written today in the reactions of the world will be studied as a pivotal moment of awakening to our shared vulnerability and our collective capacity for both panic and preparedness. The silence that follows the storm of reaction is often where the real work begins, and the world now waits, watchful and wary, for the next move in this high-stakes game of nations.